This is Thursday, July 27th, 2006.
Her name is Tomiko Akamine. She said, Konnichiwa, good afternoon.
I came to America as an immigrant, first immigrant from Okinawa in 1960. I want to see America, so that's why I came as an immigrant.
And some people, you have to marry with the American military-based people. You marry with them, they can come over here.
Right, to get your citizenship.
Yeah, but I think, I had that immigrant, Yeah, that's why I came from the Okinawa too.
Yeah.
Why did you choose California?
Well, because there's a lot of job history.
Oh, okay.
That's basically it. And I moved to California, and later I joined the Japan Airlines.
And how did you learn English?
Because I went to school. Out of the world. I'm the one took a high school test and I passed it. And in high school, we learned English. At that time, there was a lot of American soldiers around the area. So after school, I went to the Air Force base, to help them.
So I went to work the military.
The U.S. military?
Yeah, Air Force missile, But this, after missile, the captain told us, Tomiko, why you have to work? Go back to school, I say, I cannot go back to school. I have no money, and no parents. I have to survive my sister was so, one of the officers, you don't have to work a missile, okay? I'll take you to school for the, Air Force Base school.
American kids?
Yeah. So they come and get me to school. And after school, going to make missile at Okinawa, help them for the.
Where my dad grew up, that it is possible there is a main military base there, but that might be how my father befriended, I think a general maybe, that gave him the opportunity to have a green card to come to America. He must have been close, or they became friends, because there was basically where they lived, there was a strong military presence once their town was destroyed.
I started my own travel business. And during that time, not many job is travel agent. So, especially Okinawan.
Were you the first one to start Okinawa?
Yeah,
the first Okinawan?
So I started Okinawan travel business. I started the noodle factory.
Yeah, noodle factory. The restaurant that we had over at Rosecrans.
First one opened. Nobody had an idea to open. We started a Naha restaurant.
Yeah, Naha restaurant, I remember that. I remember that noodle machine in the back patio.
Opened as Okinawa soba, which was Masoba was very successful.
What did you get?
This is a Okinawan soba. Okinawan soba is a different noodle than a typical Japanese ramen. So Okinawan style is a little thicker. And then there's the pork, meat, vegetables.
What I'm going to assume was especially important during this time was the fact that there was still so much discrimination against Japanese people in general. So for him to create an agency, a travel agency specifically for Okinawans, was actually a really wonderful component to the community. It's something that was really well needed, because there's, I think during that time there just needed to be a lot of community, especially among the immigrants. So for him to create that was kind of brilliant and also just very comforting and helpful for specifically to Okinawans.
We immigrated here to Okinawa from America. Okinawa. I was 3 years old. So,
1960.
yeah, so that was 1961. So I was 3 years old. Grew up in Hawthorne. That was our second home here in America. That's where your father was born. And, grew up in Hawthorne and lived there in South Bay all of our lives, all my life here. So I've been staying here all my time. But, like I said, I went there 3 times for summer vacation. The last one was just right after 9/11. Spent a couple weeks here. That's when I had my aha experiencing, embracing my Okinawan Japanese culture. When you grow up here in America, there's a tendency for a lot of immigrant kids to forget their identity and want to become American and trying to fit in the crowd. And that was like a big life game changer.
Why?
I had my identity crisis. I was proud, and I joined that Japanese military, World War II, back in 2000, right after I retired from the Army National Guard. So that combination of being a Japanese soldier, and then just I'm proud to be an American, Japanese.
Right now I'm with Kristen Ng in the Japanese Friendship Garden. All of my footage from LA got deleted, so I'm here in Balboa Park trying to do things that make me feel connected to my culture. And me as a bonsai.
Do you think it's a problem that the US and Japan are putting all of their military bases on Okinawa soil?
So in the last 80 years, I'm frustrated that politicians are so corrupted that they have to use the military to further their corrupted political agendas.
Japanese people really fight for talking about internment and the importance of learning about internment. He's essentially implying that there's still a little bit of essentially privilege there.
I see.
Of forcing that story to be the main narrative. That's what it is. To be the main narrative of the Japanese American experience. Obviously, internment is not a privilege. Obviously, internment was a horrific event. However, that being the main narrative of the Japanese identity is actually very limiting. Japanese American identity is very limiting to anyone who does not fit that narrative, which is us. It doesn't matter if you are a Japanese American. It feels like in some way you need to have a story related to internment, your Japaneseness in the US to count. we need to actually expand this narrative. Internment is important, but it's not the only story.
Right. I mean, that's the only time like Japanese American interaction like really gets talked about with our American history.
Yeah, there's like a guilt behind that of like, oh, my family wasn't interned, so therefore like my story doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's something I internalized actually a lot, was feeling like, oh, my very tragic story on my dad's side doesn't even matter that much, so I don't need to share that, because I'd rather instead learn about internment so I can talk about that, even though it has nothing to do with my family, but it's important to know because it is part of Japanese American history. Our family story is also very important, extremely tragic, and absolutely worth sharing, because most people don't even know anything about how horrific Okinawa was.
Yeah.
And so for me to feel like, oh, I feel bad that my family was interned, when our families were killed in caves during the war, lost everything, and had to figure everything out from the ground up. And people don't know about that, and it's not talked about in history books. People barely understand what Okinawa is. Our culture has been erased. We were used by mainland Japan as like a way to defend their country, their people. And that says a lot about, again, how I, as well as other Okinawans and other people who don't fit in that narrative, are impacted. And what I was about to say earlier was, even in their texts, in their history books, they have to go through this, very intense vetting process of like what goes in the history books. And that matters, like what you learn in school, right? Of course. And so they talk a lot about Nagasaki, they talk a lot about Hiroshima. There's less about Okinawa, which, hey, if we're in Japan, technically you're supposed to talk about us more, because this is also part of Japanese history. If we're part of Japan, if you're gonna count us. So there's just a lot of denial that it even existed.
Yeah.
And it's partially because it's such a shame-based culture.
I see.
And there's so much focus around harmony. And so the last thing you want to do is to document things that bring about that shame and discomfort, and to pass that down and to admit to it. Especially because that's how they're viewed, right? They're viewed as such a peaceful culture, like non-confrontational, conflict avoidant. But obviously you see that resembled in really terrible ways. And so there's this need to like want to cover up. It just says a lot about like the influence of Japanese like influence, like power, right? Like they have a lot of power in their stories and like the history and what they share, what they don't share. And so that is why Okinawan history is like erased.
Yeah.
Because they have power over us. We're very much an oppressed group within Japan. And it definitely made me feel a greater responsibility to want to like talk about Okinawan culture and identify as being more Okinawan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even to the point where I do see it differently now.
It was cool to go to the club yesterday, the Kinjinkai. They were so nice.
You there?
Yeah, I went with my dad.
Wow, I'm so happy, yeah.
We just were driving by, but then we went inside and they were having a meeting. So we got to meet all the people that were there.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, it was nice. They were very nice to us.
Wow, that's nice. I was so happy to hear that.
They were so nice. They sent us with a bunch of food. Your picture was on the wall.
Oh, yeah?
Look it, that's you.
Oh, wow.
You look so young. Tomiko Akamine.
抱き合ってもいいけど同じ景色の中飛び込んでよね遊んで暮らしましょう
Right.
天まで
Ojichan, what would you like to tell your children, your grandchildren? And what would you like to say to Ojichan? Anything? Okay.